This is Christine Marr at the Atlanta History Center in Atlanta, Georgia, interviewing today Mr. Geston D. Holland on the 8th day of October 2003. Mr. Holland, would you please introduce yourself and tell me where you were born and your birthday?
I'm Geston David Holland. I was born near Dallas, Georgia. I was born June the 26th, 1916. I'm 87 years old.
Thank you. Can you tell me how you came to join the U.S. Army?
I was drafted.
In what year?
19 and, what was it, 42 or 43? 42? 1943.
And once you were drafted, what occurred?
Well, when I was drafted, I went to Anniston, Alabama. I took my examination. They wanted me to go in the Navy, but I didn't want the Navy. I objected, which I was sorry of many times.
Why did you prefer the Army?
Well, because I had several friends in the Army, and I thought we'd be in the same outfit, which we wasn't. But I was sent down to Carabel, Florida, give 6 weeks of training out in the swamps where the alligators, rattlesnakes, and mosquitoes just absolutely torture you to death. We had some deodorant, but it didn't faze them. 6 weeks there, we came back.
What was a training day like in Florida? What did you train to do?
Trained to go to the Pacific, where they wanted as near like the same conditions after we got over there as we would have when we got there.
Did you train for a specific function within the Army?
Well, I guess I did.
Could you provide some details on what a training day was like?
A training day? Well, we done a little bit of everything. We almost trained night and day. They'd put us on guard duty. We would calisthenics. We would practice shooting with our rifles. Just a little bit of everything. Get out and crawl, dig foxholes.
How old were you at the time?
I believe it was 27.
And how did you feel at the time when you were going through this training, knowing the war was coming up?
Well, I felt like I just wasn't no better to go than nobody else. I wanted to serve my country, so I didn't try to dodge the draft. I went on. Of course, it was rough to leave a wife and a child, but I did it. So we got that 6 weeks training. We was shipped on an old railroad boxcar to San Francisco, California, which taken us a whole week. Then we was put on a Matson liner, one of the fastest ships they had, and sent to Australia. Well, we went from Australia to New Guinea. Well, the war was about over in New Guinea when I got there.
What was it like when you arrived?
In New Guinea? Well, that's just a terrible country. It just rains every day, hot. Everything's contaminated. They told us not to, whatever we do, not to wade or wash our clothes in the water there. But I thought they didn't know what they was talking about, so I go down and wash my clothes, and I put a little, looked like Clear Creek, and it gave me the jungle fever. So as soon as I got up from that, I was sent to the ship to the Philippine Islands to invade the Philippine Islands. I was assigned to a boat. I was what's called a coxswain on the boat. I drove a LCM.
What does LCM stand for?
Well, it was a landing barge. We picked up the troops out off the big boat out to sea and carried them in to shore. And when we landed the troops, we also then carried in ammunition and supplies to them until they got a foothold, taken over. Then we'd move on to hit somewhere else. I was the first boat that hit the beach in Leyte Island when the Philippines was invaded.
Tell me more about that day.
Ma'am?
Tell me more about that day, please.
That day? Well, that's a day I don't like to think about much. It was rough. There was many people killed because the Japs come out in swarms that night after we landed and killed a lot of our troops that we had landed there on the beach. Well, the first night then, I was assigned my boat as to go in and pick up the dead and wounded off the beach, carry them back out to a hospital ship, which is out to sea a few miles. That was, I guess, as miserable a night as I've ever spent. But we finally got everything taken over there, and then we went to several more islands and carried troops in, made landing, take them over. Well, we was training to go to Japan when they dropped the atomic bomb, ended the war. That was the happiest I ever was in my life, and I always admire and love Truman for doing that, because that was going to be a dangerous thing to land troops on the Japan, on the main beach. But we got a call from some little old island where they had supposed to be a bunch of Japanese that's cut off, no supplies, nobody lived in it, it's an uninhabited island. We got a call to come pick them up. They wanted to surrender. So my boat was assigned to go pick them up. We picked out a crew, about 6 or 8 of us, to go pick them up.
Did your boat have a name? Was there a name?
No, it wasn't no name. Just a LCM landing craft. So we went to pick them up about 50 miles away from the base where we was.
Do you know the name of that base?
Of that
The base?
bay?
The base where you were based out of?
Oh, it was on Leyte Island.
Okay.
Of course, I stayed on the boat all the time. I was on the boat, lived on the boat for 2 years.
Okay.
I wasn't, just, if I went on the beach, it was just to pick up dead or wounded or something like that and right back off. But my home was on that little old boat. But as I say, we went to pick up them troops, them prisoners. We got there, we pulled our boat in on the beach, and they cut loose firing at us. Killed about half of our crew. Well, we backed off, but we done had about half our crew dead, and we had them on the boat. Put them in the bottom of our boat there, and blood was flowing. And as hot as over 100 degrees hot. Took us about 2 days to get back to our base, and you talk about something, that was the worst odor that anybody could imagine, is a dead human being out in that hot weather. That was one of the, I guess, another one of the worst experiences that I had while I was over there. So I guess that about covers my activities over there.
Where did you go after the Our Lady Island?
Well, we went to Negroes Island. We went to several of them islands. I didn't even know the name of them. We just got our orders to land troops such and such a place, and they'd give us our readings to follow the compass. We usually traveled at night because we was afraid to be out in there in the plane to bomb us, you know, if we was out in the ocean now in the daytime. So we traveled at night, and they'd give us a reading with the compass, and we'd have to follow that, and it'd carry us right to where we wanted to go.
And why did you travel always at night?
Always at night we traveled, keep the planes from bombing us. The Japanese had them little old Zero planes, and they'd come down and sounded like a bumblebee. Luckily, they never did hit our boat, but they hit some of the big boats and go right down the smokestack.
And then after your work on Our Lady Island and Nichols Island, what came next?
Well, I say several islands that we went on. I don't even know the names of them. There's many islands over there.
And what were you doing at each of these islands?
We'd carry troops into them to capture them, take them over. A lot of them it wasn't much to it, but some of them it was. It was rough on Leyte. It was rough on Negroes Island.
Why was it rough?
Well, you had the Japs are shooting at you just. And bullets didn't sound too good, whistling around your ears.
What sort of food did you all eat there?
Well, I had to live on bananas for most of the time because they give us that old Australian food, canned food, all we had on the boat. And that stuff wouldn't stay on my stomach. I'd eat it and right up it'd come. So I'd take a case of it in to the beach and swap it to some of them natives for a stalk of bananas and put them on the boat. That's what I mostly eat for nearly 2 years.
And what about recreation? Did you all ever have any time off that you and your crew members?
None whatsoever.
No?
We had a barrel out there on the boat. We caught rainwater to bathe in. That's the only thing we had to bathe in. It was a barrel of water we caught rainwater in.
And I understand that you saw MacArthur at some point?
What?
Did you see General MacArthur?
Yes, I did. But he was out at sea about 15 to 20 miles on the staff boat out there. And I went right up around him. I never did get on the boat with him, but I've seen him standing out on the deck. He didn't get close in where the shooting was going on.
What are some other vivid memories of your experience?
Well, one of my experiences when we went to New Guinea, they told us as his headhunters there, said don't go out anywhere away from the camp without carrying your rifle. Well, I thought that was just a fairy tale. So I strayed off down there to a coconut grove. And one of the worst looking things I ever saw come up on me and it was, of course they couldn't talk English, it was some kind of jabbering with a big old long spear in his hand. And he took out after me. I've never run as hard in my life. I outrun him. But it scared me to death. Woo!
Did you find out anything more about the indigenous people there while you were there?
In New Guinea, there wasn't nothing there but, natives there that they couldn't speak English. they was terrible looking people. They said if one of them lived to be 35 years old, that was old. Their teeth rotted out while they're just children. It's a country I don't think no civilized person would want to live.
And were you able to communicate while you were away with your wife or your family back at home?
Well, none whatsoever, except maybe we'd get a mail from them. Maybe it took 2 weeks to get there. And we could write letters and carry it in and leave it on the shore. That was after we'd get a beachhead made. There'd be times for several weeks that we had no way whatsoever of communicating. Couldn't write no letters or nothing. But when we'd get island taken over, we could write some letters and we'd get a little mail once in a while. But we wasn't supposed to tell where we was or what we was doing. 'Cause it might give the enemy some information.
Did you befriend anybody in particular that is important to you in your memories of World War II?
Well, there was several, but they're practically all dead now. I reckon I don't know of another one of them that's living that was in my outfit.
Were these men that you met at training camp, or that you met later?
Well, some of them was at training camp. We went all the way over together, you know. That's one reason I ended up in that outfit, because I didn't want to go to the Navy. I wanted to stay with my friends, people I'd met, knew. But
who in particular? Could you give me some names?
Well, one of them named Geston Holland.
Of relation to you?
No relation, just the same name, but we were no relation. I can't remember the names. I'm very poor at that, but
that's okay.
I did communicate with some of them a while after I come back home, but it soon played out.
How often were you paid? And
how often we paid?
Yes.
Well, somewhere around once a month. I draw $12 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I had allotment going back to my wife and child. That's where most of my money went to. But I actually draw $12 a month.
And when you returned home, tell me about when the war, after you were complete with your mission on the islands, what happened then?
When we started home?
Yes. Or when you heard that the bomb had been dropped on Hiroshima, what happened then?
Well, we was congregated on Leyte Island, and we was waiting for transportation to come in to pick us up, to bring us back home. It was less than a month. So they put us on an old freighter, and where it took me 3 days to go over, it took a week to go back. And when we changed over climates, they supposedly give us shots to keep them taking pneumonia, but I took pneumonia. And I come into Oakland, California. I had to be put in the hospital. with pneumonia. So I had to stay there about a week or 10 days before I could get out to go home. And that was a miserable time.
Did your wife know?
Yes, she knew.
What other memories do you have of your World War II experience?
Well, a lot of them I've tried to forget. It was a rough time. I had some bad experiences. When you have your buddy to get killed right beside of you, it's rough. So it was a miserable experience to be what I went through with. I don't talk about it much. I don't like to think about it. So I believe that's about all I have to say.
Would you like to share those photos? That's a photo of you when you enlisted in the Army?
Right.
And would you like to share the next photo?
Well, this is a group of the outfit that I went in. This was taken after our basic training was over.
In Florida?
In Florida. Caribbean, Florida.
And the medals that are on your uniform, would you care to tell me about those?
Well, I never did go for medals. I was instructed to go down and receive several medals that I never did go get, because there's so many of these soldiers that never go nothing but basic training. You go down to commissary, you could buy them any kind you wanted and all kinds, and they just fill their uniforms full of them. So for that reason, I just didn't want none.
Is there anything you'd like to add to the story?
I don't believe so.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.